Hello, welcome to Bob's Dungeon. My name is Bob, I'll be your host. In this video, let's talk about horror. Now, there are a lot of horror games out there. There's the Call of Cthulhu, All Flesh Must Be Eaten, Beyond the Supernatural, and most people include games such as Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf the Apocalypse and so forth as horror as well. But let's face it, the World of Darkness really hasn't been a horror game for a long while. A lot of people disagree with me on that, I know. But anytime you try to play a vampire game, it's not a horror game. It's mostly focused on the politics going on in vampire with the vampires and stuff. And the horror, if it's there, takes a back seat. In the earlier editions of Vampire the Masquerade, the game was more about a personal horror of the characters living the life of a vampire, trying to feed and all this, and dealing with their beast. And as it went along, eventually evolved in this thing where it's more about the politics of the dance, so forth, where the vampires are trying to vie for position and backstab each other, and the horror is really kind of gone, and it's just every man for himself to gain power. The game's more drama and action oriented, and the horror really isn't there anymore. But in this video, we're going to talk about some ways in which you can bring horror back into your Vampire the Masquerade game. Now, the first two editions of Vampire the Masquerade, they are really good for the horror aspect. About third edition on, it began to be less and less of a presence. Vampire the Requiem kind of fixed that, I think, and they added a lot more horror elements back into it. A lot more unknowns, so to speak. And there is a good way to bring back horror into your Vampire the Masquerade game. The unknown. And you can say, oh, there's lots of unknowns. There really isn't that much unknowns in the game anymore. Everybody studies the books and knows everything, and there's no surprises. It's all about the politics. Well, in the earlier editions that I used to play and run a lot, the Masquerade, the Camarilla, all that, well, not Masquerade, they still gave up the Masquerade, but the Camarilla and the Sabbat and all that took a back seat. It was only there if it had to be. And the characters got to experience a lot more personal horror this way, a lot more unknowns. Some things you could do in your games to really bring back that horror would be to introduce things they're not expecting, such as, let's say they have a friend or a loved one that passes away. Well, what happens if that body goes missing? Are they going to look for it? Or are they going to just and go about their business? Well, what happens when a couple of nights after it goes missing, that missing loved one calls them, starts harassing them over the phone, and maybe doing a few other things? Are they still alive? Is an enemy messing with them? A little bit of psychological stuff there. Of course, there's a lot of sensitive players these days, so you'll have to make sure that your players are cool with stuff like that before you do it. Other things you can do is to add other types of monsters to your game. That was something that the New World of Darkness got right, because in some of their supplements and stuff, they had some other types of creatures that don't have core rule books that you could slip into your game, and the player have no idea what they just ran into, and it's horrifying. Stuff like, in one of the books, there is a black fungus, a black mold, and it looks like any other mold or fungus when you enter the building. But as soon as the vampire enters the area with the fungus, it sloshes up onto them and attacks. This thing feeds on dead tissue, and vampires are a wonderful source of food for it. Of course, if the ghoul walks in or another person, nothing happens to him. No dead flesh. But the vampire, he's fair game. Other things that they had that you wouldn't think of is in the antagonist book, they have this, I'm going to call it an alien entity. Doesn't mean it's like from outer space, but it's an alien type entity. It's from somewhere else. And it starts off weak, like a normal person. And slowly, as he starts killing supernatural creatures, vampires, werewolves, mages, it eats an organ out of them. And as it eats organs of these creatures, his attribute points increases, making him much more powerful and harder to deal with. And the more powerful he gets, the more hungry he gets, and he's quickly becoming a very big danger to the supernatural community. And I know these are things that are from Vampire the Requiem and stuff, but you could easily slip them into your Vampire the Masquerade game to really shake things up, make the players wonder what's going to be coming next. You know, add that little bit of paranoia and horror to your game. Other things you could do is you could use the prince. I know I said throw the politics in the back, but the prince can also be a very good source of horror for your characters. And I don't mean just calling down the power of the, blood hunt and stuff on them. But here's some options for you. What if your prince of your city is a complete incompetent? He has no idea what he's doing or how to run a city. Basically, he winds up just a figurehead as the primogens and so forth lead him by the nose, and they're the ones running things. But every now and again, he uses his princely powers to step up and do something completely insane that endangers everybody. Now, you would wonder why they would keep someone like that on the throne, but let's face it, all the rest of the time, he's very easily controlled and manipulated, and they have all the power. It's just every now and again, he oopsies, and they have to do damage control. This could be a very horrifying thing for your players to go through. And other things, if you still want the politics in your game, what happens when whatever group your characters are with are ousted from the city, such as a Camarilla ran city suddenly becoming a city controlled by the Anarchs, an Anarch city suddenly being controlled by the Camarilla, or even the Sabbat stepping in from out of the shadows to take over. How will they handle this? You can use that as a very big source of fear, because now this other group will be hunting down your player characters to eradicate the other group from their city. They're on the run, they're on the lam. You got the whole escape prisoner thing going. And there's just things you can do to throw them a curveball. Vampire is much, in horror in general, horror games are much more scary when they're more unpredictable. If the players know what's coming, if they know how to beat the system or run the game, you just eliminated all your horror. You need to really shake it up a little bit. I'm not saying cheat the players. I'm not saying try to kill them, but do a little bit of home brewing. I know a lot of people don't like that in their World of Darkness game, but it keeps them on edge. They don't know what's coming. And it's that unknown element that makes the game more horrifying. We used to keep that going a lot in those earlier years, but then it all was political. All had to be about the camera. All had to be about the spot. It can't be anything but those two aspects. Ugh. don't care for that. So, anyway, thank you for listening to my probably wrong rambling. And hopefully you'll join me here next time. We'll talk about something else. Bye.